So my story starts over 2 years ago. And I remember coming back from a year of traveling the world together with my boyfriend. And we came back by the end of 2018, back to our own home. So it was kind of getting used to normal life again. I was by that time also starting up my own business again. I'm a coach and trainer in personal development, so it was quite an exciting time for me. And at the same time, my two dearest family members, my sister and my mother, weren't doing so well. They both had some serious health issues that also caused emotional issues with them. So looking back, there was just a lot going on by that time. And one of the things that was also going on, that we had a big leakage in our house. And because of that, we had those huge like air drying machines that produced noise the whole day. And I sort of got a bit stressed by that as well. And I remember after a busy day of working, I was having dinner at my sister's place, and suddenly I heard like noise in my left ear. And I know my sister has had tinnitus for a couple of years as well, and she's doing quite okay with it. It's just like it's there, but it's not a big deal for her. But I started to become like a bit worried about it, like what's this? And I hope it's not going to happen to me as well. Like it sounds a bit scary to me. And from there on, it actually started. I started focusing on it all the time, started listening to it. And like within a week from then, it was so loud that it completely freaked me out. And I was worried that maybe those big sound machines, like the air drying machines in my house, caused some hearing damage. On the one hand, I thought, well, that's not possible because it's just like background noise. But on the other hand, I thought, well, if you're exposed to it for that long, maybe it can damage something anyway. So I went to the GP just to make sure that everything was okay. And he referred me to the hospital. Doctor researched me, but he couldn't find any hearing damage. And he was like, well, it's obvious to me, it's tinnitus and there's nothing we can do. You have to live with it. And they have great psychological treatments that enable you to accept it. But yeah, it's something we cannot do anything about. So good luck with that. And that's actually when I really started to freak out. I remember like literally sitting on the floor in the hospital and crying in panic, so that a nurse came to pick me up to their canteen room to comfort me a bit, because I was like, completely in panic. My sister was recovering from a very bad concussion, and she was sort of onto the path of mind-body healing. And she read some books about the connection between your mind and like physical symptoms. And she told me, well, I haven't recovered from my concussion yet, but what I read in the books, it sounds so logical. Maybe it can help you as well. It was hard for me to believe that it could work for tinnitus as well. But I followed this American guy, this expert in mind-body healing on YouTube. And one day I asked him a question like, do you think this applies to tinnitus as well? And that's when he mentioned your name and your website. And that felt like, yes, I knew this was possible. But now I sort of find proof that it's true what I've believed all this time. It still took me up to where I'm now, about 1.5 years, I think, to really transfer it into my own being. But it was the starting point, and I felt sort of a relief, like, okay, this is the path that I'm going to follow because I believe it can help me. And I can really say now, over 2 years later, that it's not 100% gone, but it's like at least a 90% gone. Like 90% of the time, I don't hear it at all. And when I hear it, it's like 90% less loud. And when I hear it, I'm like, it doesn't matter because I know next moment it's gone again.
thinking about this just today. Like that's normal. So when we go into the symptoms and the pain and the hatred of it, we want to get rid of it. We want zero. Like we want
Yeah.
absolutely nothing go away. But actually, normal is being able to have tinnitus or dizziness or whatever not quite right sensations come and go a little bit throughout any day of the week. And we actually don't lodge it in our memory because it has no significance. And
No.
so the next day or the next week, we don't remember these little moments because they're so passing and fleeting and insignificant. They come and go with just no memory pattern. So actually eliminating them is not the goal. It's more what you're describing here, which is they can come and go and there is no significance. It's more like,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah. And I remember when I heard that in the middle of my like panic moments, I didn't want to hear that because I was like, I cannot imagine that this can sound insignificant.
yeah,
And also a lot of stories from people recovering from it. People told like, yeah, I can still hear it, but it's no big deal anymore. And I'm like, I don't want to hear that. I want to believe that it can really 100% go away. Um, but now I really wanted to share my story because I think like 90% gone is as good as gone anyway. Like it,
if we
yeah,
reframe it, there are moments when it's 100% gone. There are
yeah,
moments when you
it is.
100% don't hear it, and that is it, right?
Yeah, that's
Because we
yeah,
can't micromanage every single moment, but there are moments when the tinnitus noise is absolutely absent. And I think it's
yeah,
important we focus on that because that is a truth. And
yeah,
that is something that people can aim for and hope for. And I think the more we use these rock steady skills and tools, and perhaps you can talk a little bit about what that meant for you, but the more we use our rock steady skills and tools and use neuroplasticity to change the brain and create new neural patterns, the more we get those moments of absolute relief, peace, and quiet and no symptoms. So
yeah,
and that's a very yogic way of looking at it. It's moment to moment, as
yeah,
opposed to saying, well, from now until the day I die, I just don't want anything. Well, we can't micromanage that, but what we can do is be present with each moment. And then, if and when these symptoms or difficult situations and challenges arise, we can use our tools in that moment to meet it gracefully so that the next moment's a little better.
yeah,
So, when did
yeah.
you begin your
Mhm.
rock steady path? It sounds like you did a lot of research and a lot of preparing. When did you make
Yeah.
that commitment to say, okay, I'm either going to read the book or do the program or both? How did that work for you?
I think I bought your book first. It was about 1.5 years ago. Um, and looking back, the book itself wouldn't have been enough to get where I'm now. But I also could not have done it without a book because I'm like my way of comforting myself mostly is gathering information. And it really helped me to understand what was going on inside my brain and inside my ears.
And also because I built them both separately and at different points, they're actually quite different. They're super
Yeah,
complementary. And the audiences are different. So the book I designed to carry all of the information and the why we go through it, which is useful for friends and family and doctors and psychologists and our support team to understand the rocksteady neuroplasticity concepts and why it's important and how we can help people. But the program's the step by step, how do I do it? And
yeah,
actually, both, I love information too. And I remember writing the book thinking it's really nice to put all of this information in one place so it's not scattered. And I think that's the beauty of the book.
yeah. Yeah, that really helps. And for me, just like understanding how it's possible that your brain can filter out things,
Yeah.
that gave me the trust to yeah, to move forward and to really commit my time and energy to it because it was like, okay, it makes sense what I read here. So I understand it. I understand what's going on inside of me. I understand that I'm not broken, that there's nothing wrong with me.
Yeah.
And I know that I can sort of reprogram myself if I commit myself to it. So that was like the biggest step forward for me in the beginning.
Mm.
Um, I've got the book here because there was one sentence I remember that was really like, oh, yes, that really helped for me.
Mm.
And that
Mm-hmm.
was, we don't need to get rid of our symptoms or fears. We can simply override them with our joy, calm, and confidence neural pathways. And then something clicked for me, like, oh, I don't have to focus on getting rid of it. I just have to focus on overriding it. And that took away some of the focus from that I had on the sound, like all the time.
Yeah.
So sometimes like a few words can really change things for you.
Yeah, and I'd love to hear more about your rock steady path, but just in hearing you say that, it makes me feel like clarifying. And then you can speak to this, I hope, and it'll be really interesting. But we also can't skip the pain and the fears and the symptoms. Like there has to be this container of loving awareness and kindness to honor and acknowledge them and to feel it. You know, it's not this kind of bypassing. I'll just push you aside and I'll go have a hot chocolate, or I'll do something pleasant because I don't want to feel this pain. So it's not about bypassing or skipping or jumping over or medicating or numbing or avoiding. And the list goes on of all our distraction techniques that we employ as human beings. It's really about finding an element of surrender, acceptance, courage, bravery, trust in the pain and the symptoms, kind of holding it lightly and then shifting toward, well, what would authentically bring joy to me? What would authentically connect me to my truth? And starting to navigate some of those new neural pathways without denying the existing ones. Do you want to talk a little bit about that journey? Because it's so different for each person.
Yes, of course. So after reading the book, I also started the Rock Steady program. And there were a few elements that really helped me in the program. But one of the things that triggered me most was allowing my own emotions to be. And that's also sort of what you just explained. You cannot only distract yourself and try to feel the joy and do the pleasant things. No, you like have to embrace the whole package of your emotions. And I noticed for myself that it was really difficult for me to do that all by myself. So I actually combined the insights and the home practices from the Rock Steady program with a personal therapist that her company is called Emotion as Medicine. So she really believes that emotions can heal you.
Yeah.
And so it started with the insights from the Rock Steady program. And there's this one meditation in the bonus audio that's really about like discovering the feelings, the emotions inside your body and let them just travel around your body and let them be there. So I used that a lot actually. And it's really funny looking back, like a few years ago, I honestly did not know that emotions were inside your body. I thought they were inside your brain.
Well, I mean, they're in both, aren't they? And the significance we place on them, or the stories we tell ourselves about what we're feeling in our body, dramatically change the emotion and the emotional experience. So you're becoming a master of being with your emotions in your body and having that fluidity and clarity, instead of what can happen when we live in the murky, mucky confusion of unprocessed emotions or denied, ignored, dismissed emotions, and the body can clamp in and we can end up in trauma patterns.
Yeah. And I think that clamping up or those trauma patterns, they release for everybody in a different way. And I think indeed some people get terrible headaches, and in my case I had terrible tinnitus, and it was just a way of my body showing me like there's too much tension going on, and where does that tension come from? And I think for me that was from not allowing my emotions to be. And so in that therapy also, like we just discussed before we started this meeting, we also went back to my own childhood. And although I had a very loving childhood, it wasn't really easy. Like there were a lot of things going on, and my father passed away when I was pretty young, and my parents divorced on a quite young age. And when I was about, I think 3 or 4 years old, I had severe anxiety issues. So I went to psychologists, etc., because I was like, I had really severe anxiety. And what I discovered is that I didn't have to go back, like to relive that trauma from my past, because that's what I thought before. Like if you want to resolve trauma, you have to go back to your past and you have to relive it again. But what I discovered for myself, and I know it's different for everybody, is that somehow I started throughout my life to become afraid of feeling my emotions at all. Some of my emotions, they felt like they were harmful to me, or in my case, especially they would be harmful to the people around me.
Yeah.
So somewhere in my past, I learned if I'm really sad, it makes the people I love sad as well. And if I'm really angry, I disappoint the people around me.
Yeah.
So that's what I discovered for myself. So my biggest challenge wasn't to relive everything I went through, but to learn how to feel those emotions, especially of sadness and self-rejection and anger, how to let them be when they arise instead of keeping them with me and making me all tense.
Yeah. And also the whole re-traumatizing ourselves with the re-shaming of ourselves if those big feelings come up and then we don't know how to be with them or how to befriend them. And I don't know if
Yeah.
did you find the time to listen to many of the Rocksteady live group calls which come with the
Yeah.
program? Because
Yeah.
there's
I did.
isn't it astounding with people all over the world and all different ages and men and women and the common human elements of this inner child work and learning to become friendly and loving towards our inner world and all the different parts of ourselves inside of us. It's just so fascinating as different people call in and they volunteer some of their story and we work through this together and employing these kind of neuroplasticity skills, which is exactly what you would have been doing also with your therapist with um, potentially was she helping you also to build new neural pathways? Did she have that language?
Yeah, yes, sure. Yes, like she was more on the pain side of the spectrum, but she was really like, yeah. I gave her your book, and she was really happy with it because she said it's exactly my philosophy.
Yeah.
But next time I have somebody coming in with, well, not pain issues, but vestibular issues, I will certainly refer them to the book
Yeah, there's a
because it's
lot.
also really what she supported. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of common elements, and I think we said this off the recording before I hit record. While everybody heals differently, and the timeline can be different, and the ups and downs and the roller coaster of healing can look different for everybody. There's so many human common elements, which I think is why we share this healing process. So essentially, if I kind of try and break it down into its absolute bare bones, it's okay, there's something inside of me I don't like and don't want, and if I can run away from it I would, but I can't. I'm stuck. I
Yeah.
can't run away from me. So
Yeah.
right, no one can fix me, there's no pill, there's no device, and I'm stuck with this. So I'm going to have to learn how to change my brain and my body and how I'm experiencing myself so that I can feel normal and at peace with myself. How do I go from the current neural patterns I have now that I don't like and create new neural patterns that actually feel safe and loving and kind and calm and whatever else I want to feel in my new normal? Bridging that gap from A to B is the Rocksteady process, but I think it's really a human process.
And it's an ongoing process. I
Yeah.
think it's never finished. And I can say now, well, I healed from from tinnitus, but it's not like I'm 100% always okay with myself, and it's not like I can let go of everything now because I'm there. No, it's still that sometimes I can feel overwhelmed by my emotions, and I notice my first reaction is distract yourself, and reject those emotions, because what I do often is I start making the emotions less important by thinking, well, it's not that relevant, it's not that bad.
I relate to that. I relate to that.
Yeah, instead of just like taking 5 minutes to sit down and to feel, okay, so apparently I feel really bad. What's going on? Where do I feel it? Can I allow it to be there? And I know when I started the Rocksteady process, I tried that as well. But in the back of my mind, I was thinking, okay, I allow my emotions because I know then they will go away. And that
Yeah,
doesn't work.
that's so true. And that can happen also when people try, well, any therapy actually, including psychology therapies and yogas and meditations and mindfulness. We can be using our tricks and tools to get rid of, okay, which is
Yeah.
not the goal. And that's really clear. I say it, I feel like on repeat thousands of times. But it can be really hard for people to understand. But aren't I trying to get rid of it? Like, isn't that the whole point? No, we're actually learning to expand more of us, to accept and welcome all of us. But if you think about it, if we get to know more of ourselves and expand more of our inner world and our being, the symptoms become such a tiny part. There's so much more to feel and experience and to expand into, that there's actually a lot of space for them to be there. I sometimes use the analogy of, being super obsessed with our elbow. If we walk around all day focused on our elbow and living with the perspective of our elbow and everything's about the elbow, we miss the rest of ourselves. But if we just accept the elbow's there and it's a part of us and we sort of have a broader view, the elbow doesn't take up as much space mentally or physically even.
Yeah.
So it's this acceptance and surrender and wholeness and oneness. And I love also the analogies of nature. And when I look at trees or the veggie garden or weather patterns, we are humans, we are nature, we're a part of it. We're all interconnected, and there's this constant changing. There is no destination. Summer just doesn't happen and then everything stops. There's an evolution into the next season. And as you're saying with healing, what does healed even mean?
Yeah.
And to me, it's very much this rock steady place of being able to gracefully meet and feel through with loving kindness whatever the day brings me.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I haven't had symptoms for a while now, but I'm a new mother with a 2-year-old and an 8-month-old, and I get lots of rock steady moments.
Yes, exactly.
Little challenges or little questions or doubts or, new things, new challenges, new balls I'm juggling and new people I'm relating to. And if I can pause and respond and be patient and be attuned and be attentive and be available and present, I mean, it just helps so much. And I think these are those tools that we're working on, not as a destination, but as a way of life, which you've beautifully said.
Yeah, it is a way of life. And I now remember having a moment like that yesterday, because like I said, I have a 5-month-old daughter. And yesterday evening, she didn't want to go to sleep. She was completely like panicking and crying and for an hour. And I got a bit sad and frustrated myself.
Yeah.
And what I notice in difficult moments is my first way to go is like I go into the fixing mode. I do that with myself when something's going on. I want to fix myself, and now I really wanted to fix my daughter's problem. And like that's really my pitfall, I think. And at one moment, I just sat down with her in front of the window, and we both looked outside. And I really took a moment to feel what it did to me that she was crying like that. And then I started to get really sad myself. And normally I would sort of suppress that or reject that, like, oh, I'm a terrible mother because I get sad when my daughter cries. And now what I try to do is just feel that sadness and just like I literally cried along with her for 5 minutes.
Yeah.
But that can feel like a relief then.
Yeah, I hear you, and it's like we're not robots. It's a little bit it's actually really upsetting when our children are upset, and every piece of us wants to be able to console them and fill them with love, and it's like a sign of our humanity when we can feel with them.
Yeah.
And yeah, I've had so many rich moments of emotion with my children, and I find them to be beautifully tender, where I know the old me would have felt shame and would have exactly what you're saying, the fixing, the pushing away, the come on, let's have food, let's eat.
Yeah.
Whereas I've gotten much better at being with uncomfortable feelings, like really embracing the humanity of it. And at one point, actually, I was just having all these just beautiful tears and a lot of memories and meeting a lot of my inner child. And it was very gentle. And it was kind of like rocket speed therapy. It was a lot. This is straight after giving birth to my second baby. And I caught up with a retired psychologist who was being a mentor for me. We had a cup of tea. And I said to her, I've been doing so much crying and it's been beautifully tender and just incredible. And for the first time in my life, I'm really letting myself cry. And I was like, and my baby doesn't really cry at all. And she said, well, your baby doesn't need to cry because you're doing the crying for the two of you. And I said, oh, we're connected. And I think there is this inherent human connection.
Yes, there
Um,
is.
and she actually made a comment, if we're not crying and we're suppressing, the baby will cry for us. And I
Yeah.
thought, well, that's interesting.
Yeah, because they're so sensitive. They can like really feel what's going on with you. And as a
What
mother and
with
child,
what
you're
we
so
do.
connected.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
Um, and I think learning with and from each other is that attunement, that paying attention to the details. We're not just rushing through life and doing what we're told, or jumping on the conveyor belt of consumerism. The Rocksteady process, I think, is really about slowing down and saying, hang on, what is really important to me? What am I really focusing on today? And what do I really need and why? And who are my people? And simplifying, really simplifying, because all of these things impact our neural patterns and impact the networks and the maps.
yeah.
And our body is wise.
It's very wise. And if you don't listen to it, it will give you louder and louder signals like, please listen to me. I'm there. Yeah. What
Yeah,
I also find astonishing and what I'm really grateful about is that since my daughter is there, like that's the moment I really started not to hear the tinnitus anymore.
yeah,
So somehow it felt like she helped me to heal that last bit of myself. And I don't know if it's because little babies force you to be in the moment, or whether it's that there's something more important in your life than your symptoms. And also, it's just like you don't have time to focus on symptoms because you have a baby to take care of. It's all those things together. But I think before she was born, I was already feeling a lot better, but I also all the time felt like I'm not there yet. I'm not there yet. And since she's there, I can, it feels like I'm there.
yeah.
So somehow she really helped me overcoming that last bump in the road.
Yeah, I think there's a real richness. Well, just you can actually have tinnitus in little babies and focus on it, because some people do. So it's
Yeah,
possible. Unfortunately, that would be really hard. Um, but I also think, because a lot of our inner child work is coming back to breakdowns in attachment, where we don't have that secure attachment with a trusting, wise, loving parental figure who's there for us, realistic, consistent, patient. And so many of us in our childhoods had ambiguous parenting. Perhaps sometimes our parents were scary, or they weren't there, or they dismissed us, they pushed us away. Sometimes we get cuddles and happiness, sometimes we don't. And so there's this whole, I don't know what to expect. And so we end up with insecure attachment, which is formed in our brain from birth, and then leaches into all of our relationships, career, romantic, all of it. And so I think when we have little babies and we're just smothered in cuddles, especially if we're sleeping with our babies, the brain is getting all of this cuddle input and all of this proprioceptive body scanning tenderness. And I think a lot of the attachments can heal in that
yeah,
early mother child bond. And that's something I was really curious about, and really noticing the second time around with children, and the hormones as well, the lovely bonding love, like the loving hormones, the connection hormones. Um, they are what we are. We have access to them very easily with little children and puppy dogs. It makes us want to be cuddly and warm, and that impacts the brain, and that puts us in a very neuroplastic situation where we can be malleable and change and feel compassion and warmth, which is a lot of what we're working on in Rocksteady. So for those of you listening who are like, oh shoot, I'm a grandma now, I don't have children anymore, or I don't want to have children, or I won't have children, it's totally okay, because there are so many ways to get the same impact, neurologically speaking, which can be cuddling pets, it can be cuddling loved ones, or it can even be imagining and using some of those, I suppose, meditation or visualization techniques of even just visualizing somebody you love and allowing those neural pathways to open up. We can start there as well. So I think it's just really fascinating where life takes us. And I'm a big believer in divine timing. I've lost my words for a moment there, but
yeah,
things come when we need them and when we ask. So if you are listening and you think, I just have no idea I don't understand warmth and love and compassion, and I get that. If you're that person, I also didn't understand warm fuzzy feelings at all. Didn't make sense to me. And I didn't understand why people were cuddly, that just wasn't in my normal kind of experience. And now that I have little children and something in my brain has changed, I'm like, oh, it's so nice to melt into a
Yeah,
cuddle.
maybe it's the unconditional aspect of it that, if I speak for myself, I didn't really know, and maybe a lot of people don't know.
Yep.
And then that's what you can miss. Like for me, I know what love is, but having a little baby, you started to feel what unconditional love is.
Yeah,
And
that's
there's a difference there.
beautiful language. And well, we're taking back with these skills and tools to befriend ourselves in our inner world and to pause and feel and honestly feel and acknowledge and follow through with the feeling. I think it gives us a whole new language and a whole new emotional landscape, which previously, so many of us, myself included, we're boxing off. We're like, I'm happy to feel here. Between here and here, I'm okay. I'm comfortable. I can do that. If I feel like up there or down there, I'm like rejecting that. Don't want to go anywhere near it. And so we're actually limiting our feeling capacity. But I think through the Rocksteady process and through exploring neuroplasticity and recentering and rewiring and remapping, we're actually safely going out and extending our capacity to feel both the deep grief and sadness and loss of that, some of the memories, and perhaps we have regrets or whatever's going to come up in that space, but then also the joy and the connection and the unconditional love and self-compassion and forgiveness and some of these deeper spaces of deep beauty that we otherwise limit ourselves from if we really stay here.
Yeah. And adding to that, like I totally recognize what you say. And for me, it also felt really unsafe to go outside of that box. And I think it's for me, it's been a step-by-step process of really experiencing that feeling emotions doesn't hurt you and it's not unsafe. And it sounds logical, but it can really feel like it can really block you because it really feels like it's very unsafe to feel those big emotions. Like as long as emotions are regular, it's okay. But those really big emotions, they can feel so overwhelming that I think my brain really believed they were dangerous and they could hurt me.
Yeah. And I mean, just the other day, I had some big, difficult emotions and feelings come up through my body, and I was ready for it, and I was willing, and it was as gentle and gracious as it could be for me at the time. But the word to describe what I was feeling was repulsive. Like it was repulsive. Not one part of me wanted to feel it. It was a really, difficult, traumatic kind of thing in my body surfacing for me to feel and hold and be loving toward, which sounds nice, but at the end of the day, some feelings are deeply uncomfortable. And so being able to be okay with that human spectrum of normal, it's normal to feel repulsiveness in repulsive situations. So, allowing ourselves to be more human and feel it, I find deeply beautiful actually and tender. Whereas the old me, pre-Rocksteady, would have been very judgmental, very closed off, very unwilling, very afraid. So it's like a paradigm shift. I think now that I'm older and I understand the humanness of it, there's more willingness, more curiosity, more softness. It's still uncomfortable, but there's not that shame and that fear anymore.
Yeah. You don't judge it anymore.
Or if I do, I judge it for a little bit of time, and then I'm like, oh, I'm judging it, and then I can release it.
Yeah. You recognize the judgment. Yeah, because I think in our like modern society, at least the way I grew up, you also learn that too big emotions, they are not normal. Like it's normal if you cry when you hurt your knee, but it's not normal if you keep on crying just because somebody said something not nice to you. And like big emotions, they're not that accepted, and they, when you feel them, at least for me, I really believed, like I described that I had severe anxiety when I was young, and I've like up till 2 years ago, I really believed I was not normal as a child. I was an abnormal person. And now I'm like, well, no, it's not abnormal. It's just an emotion that had to find its way out. And it makes me human instead of a not normal person.
Yeah. And I actually just learned yesterday, it might have even been today, um, we don't have these self-regulating and self-soothing skills that are really the nuts and bolts of the Rocksteady process. They're something that we learn and adopt with our caregivers. And I think it's right up until the age of 13. It's quite old. We actually need adults to hold us and help us regulate, help our nervous system feel safe, feel trust, and feel love. And your little 3-year-old didn't have that. And she couldn't self regulate. She couldn't self soothe. She couldn't self talk. She couldn't even make sense of those adult emotions. She's too little. So, of course, she does what she can and she protects herself. And then when you're ready and older, you can go back and do that healing with her and for her in your brain pathways. So it's absolutely normal. And I think what a gift that you have that experience that you can now actually give your children this emotional literacy and emotional support and tools, so that as they're learning, they'll have that proficiency to do it within themselves when they're ready.
Yeah, you just talked about divine timing, and I often now think that I'm actually happy that tinnitus happened to me before I became a mother,
Yeah,
because it made me a better mother, because I understand emotions better and I know better how to support my own child in it,
yeah,
because I'm able to support myself better.
yeah. I couldn't agree more. To anyone listening, it really does suck to have severe tinnitus or severe dizziness or vertigo, and actually the healing pathway is very similar for those conditions. Um, so if you're listening to this and you're like, oh, I just hate it, it does get better. It can resolve, it can go away. Jeske and I can both vouch for that personally, and I've also seen many, many people come.
Really, really true. Yeah, and that's why I wanted to do this call with you, because I really want to show people that it's possible.
Yeah, and I hope that what you're getting out of this conversation is the richness of the process of healing. That healing is probably not a pill, it's probably not a device, and it's probably not something somebody else does for you. It's possibly going to be a deep dive within yourself, your inner world, your heart, and to ask some questions of yourself and let your body give you the answers. And it could be that the tinnitus or vertigo, dizziness, whatever you're sitting with on this call, it could be that your body is calling you home, and that deep pain is actually an alarm for you to listen to come back to a deeper sense of truth. And my experience is coming out the other side is, I mean, I've learned so much in this journey. I never could have predicted it. And I'm definitely maturing and enjoying myself more. There's more play in my life now. I enjoy my company, my own company. I love sitting in solitude. I literally seek out 20 to 40 minutes of quietness a day, sitting in my own body and listening to the world around me, because tinnitus is not a problem at all, and I'm not afraid of my body. And that's just been the biggest gift. But when I was most anxious and most symptomatic, I wouldn't have understood that, and I probably would have hated hearing it. But I think it's really important to perhaps be open to that journey of going from deep pain to deep joy, and whatever's in the middle is the Rocksteady process.
Yeah, beautifully said. Yeah, I
Yeah,
completely agree.
yeah,
And yeah, and like for me, it helped like to know that it's possible, can give you the courage to continue the process, because it's also scary sometimes, because you don't know exactly which pieces of the puzzle you have to find to complete your own puzzle, because it's so different for everyone, and you don't know how long it's going to take you, whether it's overnight or whether it will take a few years. But like having the trust that you will get there makes it easier to continue the ride.
and I think keeping it moment to moment is really helpful. Perhaps shifting the goal away from getting rid of to how can I gracefully meet the challenges that I have in daily life? How can I gracefully support myself? Those put us back in the seat of control rather than kind of needing some kind of outcome that's out of our control. So looking at how can I meet myself more gently and gracefully? How can I support myself? How can I learn tools to actually reshape my brain in a really gentle and kind way? And there was something else I wanted to say. Yeah. Oh, I don't want people to be afraid of what their body is screaming at them. And in tinnitus, it can feel like that. My body is screaming at me. I don't think we need to, well, we can be afraid. That's one option, right? We can also choose to not be afraid because our body is on our team. And whatever we are sensing, hearing, feeling, or even whatever memories and perhaps traumatic stuff is arising as an adult, the reason that's happening is because you're ready to process it. If you are not emotionally ready to process an old trauma from when you were little, your body will suppress it. It will literally hide it from you. So I really feel like normalizing this process. You don't have to be afraid of it. Your body is beautifully intelligent and built to do this. It's built to heal. And when you're ready, you will get the call in and your body will release all these suppressed feelings, sensations, emotions, memories, whatever it is, however it looks for you. And if you put yourself in a position where you're supported and you've got the skills and tools, whether that's using the Rocksteady program or seeking therapy, like private therapy, or a combination of both. I did a combination of both myself as well. Then, when you've got the tools and the support, it can be really graceful. And another trick I use, which I'll share with you, is if things are feeling too overwhelming and too intense, and there's too many memories and too many big feelings, actually just say to your body, say, body, I'm listening. We're in this together. I'm going to support you. I'm not pushing you away and I'm not running away, but please slow it down. This is too much. Just tell your body to slow it down and it will keep suppressing things until you're ready. So it's a two-way conversation. And I think that comes through in those rich live group calls where we have everybody sharing their experience and troubleshooting their neuroplasticity process. I really want to thank you for your time, Jessica. If you had one piece of encouragement or wisdom for your younger self 2 years ago, what do you think that might be?
That's a good question. Because the first thing I would want to say to my first impulse is saying, know that you will get rid of it. But I know that wouldn't have been the right advice because that was not what it was about. Maybe it's trusting yourself, and in the broader spectrum, like trusting yourself that you're able to handle life in all of its difficulties and all of its beautiful ways. Because I know, looking back, that you're strong enough to do that.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And I want to say, I think it's okay to say to your youngest, because it's you talking to you, no one gets hurt. I think it's okay to say to her, you get through this. You get through this.
Yeah, you can, definitely.
Yeah. Beautiful. Thanks again.
You're welcome.
For everyone listening, if you would like to share the path and the journey that we've been discovering, you can find out more about Rocksteady and me. I'm Joey Remenyi at seekingbalance.com.au. You can join my Facebook community and we can share the healing journey together. So it's a bye for now.
Bye.